There's a long, stubborn myth that has shaped agriculture from the first river civilizations to modern backyard growing. The belief that crops only thrive in strong sunlight. For most of history, entire farming calendars, settlement patterns and wartime food strategies were designed around chasing the sun. Yet, when you look closer at the practices of mountain communities, monastery gardens, forest edge villages, and even Cold War survival farms, a very different truth emerges. Humans didn't always have open fields and clear skies. They improvised. They grew food in valleys, under tree canopies, between stone walls, beneath fortress overhangs, and in courtyards that barely saw an hour of daylight. And many of those crops didn't just survive the shade, they produced astonishing yields. Today, with urban density rising, extreme weather becoming more common, and more people turning to hydroponics and controlled environments, understanding shade-productive crops isn't niche knowledge. It's practical resilience. Whether you're working with a shaded balcony, a backyard squeezed between buildings, or a hydroponic room where light intensity is limited, these 10 crops are the backbone of reliable food production when the sun isn't on your side. Lettuce responds to shade by producing, tender, fast-growing leaves. Lettuce actually developed in cooler climates and, naturally thrives in indirect light. The less heat and direct sun it faces, the less likely it is to become bitter or bolt early. Historically, shaded courtyards across Europe made lettuce a dependable kitchen staple. Today, you can place lettuce along the north side of a structure or under a 50% shade cloth and still harvest weekly. In a hydroponic setup, even low-intensity LEDs provide enough energy for continuous growth, and spacing leaves room for airflow prevents mildew. Spinach becomes sweeter and more robust when grown outside direct sunlight. Shade keeps spinach cool, and, cool conditions encourage lush leaf development. Scandinavian and northern communities, historically relied on shade-grown spinach during months when sunlight was really quite limited. The practical application today is actually pretty straightforward. Just keep spinach in areas that receive only morning sun, or, none at all. Water consistently, and importantly, avoid overhead heat sources indoors. The plant's natural cold-tolerant biology, honestly, does the rest. Kale's hardiness, I must say, makes it one of the strongest shade producers on the planet. Kale evolved in rugged coastal environments where fog and shade were, more often than not, constant companions. Even under as little as 2 hours of filtered light, kale will continue producing full leaves. To really maximize your yield, growers can plant kale where taller crops cast shadows, or even indoors with moderate light, rather than, intense brightness. Kale also benefits from lower temperatures, making it, ideal for basements or shaded hydro spaces. Swiss chard remains productive even under deep partial shade. In fact, Swiss chard was historically favoured in cloistered monastery gardens because it didn't need strong sun. It grows these wide, dense leaves even in cool, dim corners. One practical method really is to grow chard beneath fruit trees or along the shaded sides of greenhouses, where other leafy crops tend to stall. In hydroponics, chard's thick stems actually respond quite well to a steady nutrient flow, even when there's only minimal light intensity. Arugula's flavour, interestingly, intensifies in shade, and its growth remains rapid. Arugula performs exceptionally well when protected from strong sun. Shade, reduces heat stress, which in turn concentrates those peppery compounds in the leaves. In shaded gardens or even low-light hydro setups, arugula can actually be cut, every week. For really tight spaces, growers often seed arugula quite thickly in trays and harvest it as if it were a little mini field, creating a high-output crop with, honestly, almost no lighting demands. Mustard greens, interestingly, deliver continuous leafy harvests, even with very low sun exposure. And, you see, mustard greens respond a lot more to soil or water nutrients than they do to sunlight. Historically, they were grown in shaded mountain terraces and in the corners of wartime gardens where other crops failed. The key to producing large yields today is to keep the roots moist and harvest outer leaves frequently. Even in shade, mustard greens rebound quickly. Green onions produce dependable yields with only ambient light. Green onions were commonly grown indoors on windowsills and cellar entrances because their energy demand is minimal. They don't require strong sun to form tall, flavourful shoots. You can keep a perpetual green onion system running by planting the bulbs in shallow trays, harvesting the tops, and letting them regrow. Hydroponic growers often use simple jars or small NFT channels to maintain a constant supply. Cabbage forms tight heads even with limited light exposure. Cabbage was a critical crop in cloudy northern regions precisely because it doesn't need strong sun to develop structure. Although growth slows slightly in shade, head formation remains reliable. A practical approach is giving cabbage morning light and afternoon shade, or placing it in bright shade under mesh tarps. Indoors, moderate LEDs are enough to form compact heads as long as temperatures stay cool. Peas climb and produce pods in low light due to their cool climate origins. Peas evolved in cloud-dominated regions, making them naturally shade-tolerant. They use limited light efficiently, focusing on pod production rather than lush foliage. When placed in shaded gardens, peas will still climb and fruit. A grower can run trellis lines along a shaded building or in a partially covered greenhouse to get early spring pods without heavy lighting. Beets produce abundant greens in shade and, respectable roots. Beets under shade shift their energy toward leaf production, making the greens abundant and nutrient-dense. While roots may develop slightly slower, they still form reliably. Historically, beet greens served as a major food source during shortages. Modern growers can plant beets on the shaded sides of garden beds and harvest both roots and greens for continuous production. These crops prove that sunlight isn't the gatekeeper of high yields. It's merely one tool among many. When you understand plant history, adaptation and physiology, shade ceases to be a limitation and becomes an advantage. Every corner of a garden or hydrosystem, even the dim ones, becomes productive territory. For more historically grounded growing guides, hydroponic strategies, and survival-focused crop deep dives, make sure you subscribe to Hydro Haven and share this guide with anyone who wants to grow smarter, not brighter.